to know thyself. It's like it's super simple. It's ancient knowledge. I think that's so important because I personally believe that you can only know someone else as deep as you know yourself. Sorry if that sounds so cliche, but it's true. And I think the better you know yourself, the better you understand like why you have the reactions that you do to certain things or what you want, what you desire, all of that. It only allows you to be a better partner, to be a better friend, to be a better sibling, daughter, all of the things, coworker, colleague. And I think it would solve a lot of problems because then people would be a lot less reactive in the world.
100%. Welcome to You're Allowed to Hate Your Husband, a modern day love story. I am Remy Stern. I'm a relationship coach, and we are going to talk all things relationships. From being single to dating to being engaged, married. Who you marry is the most important decision you will ever make.
If you're looking for a wife, which is a beautiful thing to do, the best thing to do is to choose wisely.
If you're thinking, what am I doing wrong? Everybody else has it right. Then you are in the right place because trust me, nobody knows what they're doing. I'm so excited. Please hop right in, listen to this episode, listen to this series, and we are so excited that you are joining us here. I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode with Katie from The Bevy. She's a matchmaker and COO of The Bevy, which is an incredible service that really it's bespoke. So it matches people up so perfectly. But beyond that, she is an incredible person. She is just a light in this world. We talk all things femininity and masculinity and how to balance those two energies. And if you don't know what that means, listen to this episode. But how to balance those two energies within yourself, in dating, in relationships, and really in even career and all aspects of your life. So I don't even want to tell you more because it's too good in the episode. So hop in. You are going to learn so much from her in this episode, and I guarantee you it will change your life. So listen to this episode and enjoy.
Well, I'm so excited to be here. So thank you for having me. I'm a matchmaker and COO at The Bevy, which is a bespoke matchmaking service here in New York and California and Florida. We're all referral based. And we've been going strong for about 10 years now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Quickly, what would bespoke mean versus just like a regular one? It's just very tailored per person.
Yeah, it's a very high touch service.
Okay.
So I always tell people this isn't like something for the masses. We don't work with like thousands of male clients or anything like that. We actually typically only work with around 30 at a time at most. So we're really just focusing on getting people into relationships before we take on new clients. And we'll kind of handle everything beginning to end, whether it's, setting up the dates and coordinating people's schedules and collecting feedback after the dates and everything like that.
Oh, I have so many questions. But first, I'm just curious, how did you get into this?
Yeah. I was actually referred. So in the same way that a lot of the men and the women that we work with are referred, I was referred by a mutual friend of mine and one of the founders, Nikki. And they were looking for someone, I guess, for a really long time. And my friend reached out and was like, I think you would be so perfect for this. Call her. And I did. And sure enough, it was like everything that I was looking for. I had told my husband like maybe a week prior that I just wanted to be a connector, as weird as that sounds. But yeah, so it was everything on my list of what I wanted in my next career. And so I trusted it.
What does that mean? That like, what are the things that you have to be a good matchmaker?
I would say what the three of us have in common is, yes, we're connectors. We love people. We, I think, tend to be pretty good listeners. I think that's part of the reason why we have such a high success rate. I always joke that I'm kind of like a therapist / headhunter at the end of the day. Having a lot of empathy, I think, is important. Those are a few things that come to mind.
you're right. I think that's actually the best way to describe it is like be a therapist and a headhunter. Like
Yeah.
you have to think headhunter where it's like, does this person match this person? But you have to be warm enough and open enough and empathetic and sympathetic and all those words enough to be able to sit and learn about someone and talk to them about
Exactly.
what they're looking for.
Exactly.
So what do you find people are looking for these days? You work with men, right? So
We work with men as clients, yes. So my day-to-day consists of like mostly meeting with women. But yes, the men are the clients.
So you mostly are speaking to women throughout the
Yeah.
day. So let's start then with the men because they're your clients.
Mhm.
And they're coming to you saying, I'm looking for this, 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 and this. Women, obviously, then you reach out to them. They reach out to you. You get connected, whatever it is. And they're like, this is who I am and this is what I am looking for. So let's start with the men. What are people typically looking for? We'll start with that. And then I have a million questions.
Okay. Let's see. What are men typically looking for? I would say, obviously, it's different for
Mhm.
everyone. But some of the trends that I've been seeing that have been the most important are things like empathy.
Mhm.
And I kind of feel like that started getting more popular coming out of the pandemic, where that was one of the first things people would ask for. A lot of times men will say like things like intellectual curiosity, somebody who's like nurturing, family oriented, that sort of thing. So maybe that's not a surprise.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it's super interesting. And I think the world is confused on dating right now, which is okay. But I think a lot of changes have happened in the past 10 years, let's put it,
Yeah.
before apps even, because that's a big change for dating. Like I wasn't single when the apps really, really took off. So I'm learning about it through my clients, through friends, through, people around me. So it's a big change that we have to get used to, kind of the same way that we had to get used to having the internet
Yeah.
and having cars on the street and just like it changes culture. But even before that, what I see is that dating and relationships and marriage, let's say in like the 50s, was very like the woman at home taking care of the family, and men were looking for a good housewife, pretty much, which is okay.
Yeah,
Fine
it
to
was the
say for the
times.
times. And women were looking, and my grandparents will say this. My grandpa's 103, and my grandma, yeah, he's so
Oh my
cute.
God.
He's actually close to 104.
Oh,
God willing,
wow.
very soon he'll be 104. And my grandma just turned 80 something yesterday. And I've asked them, I said, like, what did you find attractive about the other person? And she was like, I walked in a room and I knew that he was successful and he could take care of me in my life. And like, that's what she was looking for. It was very practical.
Mhm.
And he saw her and she was beautiful and partying and glowing. And he was like, and then he found out she was like a nice person. He was like, great, she's gonna be a great mother and she's
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, it's different, right? It was much more black and white.
Like
Now-
very straightforward, I feel like back then,
Yes.
because gender roles were very
Yes.
black and white.
Exactly. And now it's confusing where, first of all, I think the hookup culture messed with things.
Yeah.
It came in and like spun things around. And it's like, okay, well, you're no longer men courting a woman and a woman like, you need to work for me and come to my house and bring me flowers to take me on the first date. Like,
Right. I mean, that's
But-
probably something to do with social media too, and the way that people reach out now to go on dates is very
yes,
different than it was back then.
Exactly. Then even social media, like
Yeah.
it's so in like the club culture, like it has changed. So when people are saying this, the empathy, the nurturing, when they're looking for a woman like that, like all of those traits, do you think the traditional ways of a man looking for that, like the woman, the woman of the house and the woman looking for men, like have we lost that? Is that still a thing? What's going on there?
I definitely think that it's coming back to that in a sense. It has been a very interesting time in the last 10 years in terms of like the expectations. I think, well, maybe not even the last 10 years, maybe it goes back further than that, but like expectations for us as women, to show up in the workplace and, have that kind of go-getter personality, more masculine
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do.
It's changed. And that's what we're trying to figure out. And you talk to people all day long about this. And you said masculine, which makes me think I've done also a solid amount of like learning about being in your feminine and allowing men to be in their masculine. And I don't think we understand it yet. So, in dating, because the way you described it, like what it seems like men are looking for are a beautiful feminine energy. Is that correct?
Yes. And they are still looking for someone who can hold their own as well. So I think, again, what we were saying about it being confusing times is like, I think that it's very natural for, and maybe this isn't like PC or anything, but I think it's very natural for men to want to be the provider, but they also don't want the expectation that like, that they have to be. Does that make sense?
Yes,
like,
yes. But this is when it gets confusing and hard, let's say for women. Because like, for example, you and I both run businesses or have businesses.
Yeah.
And working, I told you that right now I'm probably more in my feminine. I might even just ask you to describe what this is because people might be extremely confused out there.
That's fair.
But I'm in a moment of rest, just like I was in my masculine, which is a much more, from what I understand, do, build,
very
make,
action oriented.
Exactly. For many months. And I think as a woman with the fact that we kind of run on cycles, there is a cycle. And I hit a point that I was like, I'm craving just nurturing, calm energy.
Yeah.
And I'm totally okay with it right now. And whatever comes from it next, I guess I'll watch and see.
And I think that makes total sense. Kind of what we were saying earlier. It's like men run on a 24-hour clock and women run on a 30-day clock just because we have, like you said, our cycles. So I think it's very natural to kind of let yourself ebb and flow through action phases and then more periods of rest.
Oh, I have so many thoughts and questions. We're going to take 100 steps back for a second before, and I have to remember so many things because it's a subject that like there's so much to it.
There is so much, and there could be a whole. I mean, there are podcasts on just the masculine and feminine energies.
Because by the way, just in you, I see it like you're so feminine in your energy, and it's such a compliment because it's really the most. And I think it's also the other sad thing is. There's a bad connotation around it now, which is like, it means weak. I think it is the most powerful
Not at all.
energy in the world. People are like, oh, the woman should be like working. And of course, women should get paid the same. That's not even a question in anyone's mind. But like to be in that super powerful, energetic cycle of a woman is so cool. So
it is truly the most, I think, powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the source of all creation.
Oh my God, you're
literally.
So right. So tell us, because I think this is a thing in dating that nobody talks about, and we have not covered this on the podcast. So please just like riff with it. Go. What is feminine and masculine, and why does it matter?
Yeah. So first of all, it exists in just about every facet of life. Masculine energy is, it's being in action. It's the doer, it's the leadership mentality, it's the provider instinct. It's all of those things. And then the feminine qualities, and so much more, but the feminine qualities are things like receiving and nurturing and caring. And that doesn't mean like mothering people necessarily. It's like being compassionate and empathetic, things like that, being flexible. Whereas again, masculine is more like a bit more rigid, a bit more structured. And I think it's also super important to note that we all possess both of these qualities. And so it's kind of a dance even within ourselves to keep that balance.
So good. So this might be like a little bit out there, but I've been told that like even just look at the body, the human body. And I find that like if you look at men and women physically and biology, like it's going to tell us a lot about why we are the way we are. And when you're entering a relationship with someone, starting with pre-date one, knowing this is very important. But a man's body is very outward. It's very like one dimensional, like this one thing. And a woman's body is very inward and it's receptive.
I mean, even just think about the egg and the sperm.
Yeah.
You know, the sperm. I don't know if
it's part of the conversation, and it explains a lot. And if we're scared to talk about it, then it's never going to be like understood. But it is. It means that the sperm has one job, and it goes out and it does it.
They have to go and out compete all of the other sperm, and the egg she sits there, you know, and she waits for whoever wins to.
Yeah, and then guess what? Her power is so ridiculously amazing and magnificent and miraculous that all of a sudden from that little thing, a human being comes. Like, someone please explain to me how that's the case.
Yeah, it is so beautiful. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I feel like all of my friends are pregnant right now. And it's really such a beautiful process. It's obviously, but the fact that you are, creating a human, you're creating bones and eyeballs and like all of these things inside of your body. Like,
no, it's mind-blowing.
The most powerful thing I think of all time.
It's truly mind-blowing. And my daughter just turned 2 this week. She's the best. And thank you. She's so
Happy
cute.
Birthday to you too.
Yes, literally, it's so crazy. I'm like, wait, but like that was the day that I was pushing. Just kidding. But she now is like, actually today, for the first time ever, she looked at me and we were at the park and she was kind of like, hey, mama, like, you stay back. Like, I knew the look. She was just like, mama, I'm going to go and you stay here.
Aww.
And usually she's like scared to do anything at the park. All of a sudden she's running. I'm watching her. I have pictures of the whole thing. Cause like, I couldn't believe it. And there's a big kid's side. Like, it's huge. The first time I went down this, I was scared to go down it because I go down slides now. And because this is my activities during the day. And I see the older kids like kind of watching this little 2-year-old come up. She gets up on the slide and they were like, okay. And then someone like kind of pushes her and she came down. And it was that moment of like, I just did something big. I'm independent. And I was able to look at her and be like, what do you mean I created you? Like, what is going, but it like, how cool is that? So this goes all the way into being a mom. And I actually want to even get to that point, relationships, what it means to be a woman who might work, might run a business, might have kids, who knows, all of the things. But going back into dating, how can a woman live in this feminine energy and use her masculine in order to be in that flow? Because I actually do think probably one of the easiest ways to get out of the flow is to have an unbalance in the two. Yeah. Is that a word, unbalanced?
Yeah. We'll go with yes.
I think that there's another word that I'm just not thinking of, but when they're out of balance.
Yes, out of balance.
There we go. So how have you seen, or what does it mean to be in balance with these two?
Yeah. I think it's one, just first, I think knowing where you're more dominant currently. So in the workspace, like we were talking about earlier, yes, you kind of need to be in your masculine, and that is okay. Actually, it's great. There are so many women in the world. They're doing incredible things. They're dominating boardrooms. They're building multi-billion-dollar companies. Like, we need to be in our masculine sometimes, and then it's okay to turn it off when you get home. And I think. And by turn it off, I mean to step more into your feminine when you get home. And I think that there are a lot of like embodiment practices that you can do.
Tell me more.
Yeah. Like, just for example, like when you come home, you can kind of like derobe of your masculine by maybe you light a candle, maybe you put on some soft music, maybe it's just like taking a nice bath or stepping into like a silk robe. We were kind of talking about earlier how sometimes the clothes that you put on can make you feel a type of way. Like if you put on a flowy dress, you might feel more feminine, So just knowing what it is that allows you to kind of drop more into your body, because that's what being in your feminine is. It's being in your body, not being in your head so much. And finding practices that kind of get you there.
Oh, I love it so much. I have 2 quick thoughts on that. One is a lot of my like knowledge and practices are root from Judaism. And I'm not going to say this correctly, and I'm going to want someone to come on and talk about it. But there's a moment where the woman is given the first mirror to look at herself. And it's a really beautiful, powerful moment. And I think some people can take it of like, oh, like the woman's supposed to look pretty for the man, like, you know, kind of take it that way. But the truth of the matter is, again, I'm going to use the word powerful, but like, how cool is it that a woman can look in the mirror and like make themselves or just even feel beautiful looking in the mirror, and truly wars have been fought over it. Like that says something in itself. So feeling beautiful, and this goes for dating, marriage, I actually think it's probably more important when you're married, because it gets easy to like stop trying. You know, and Jonathan and I talk about this where like, you
get comfortable.
Yes, you get very comfortable, and like
you guys accept yourself fully, which is a beautiful thing.
Yes, but I feel better when I'm wearing a little white dress like this versus if I'm wearing my sweatpants and sweatshirt. And if there's a time and place for everything. Of course, love the sweatpants. But a friend told me, she's like, listen, when your husband comes home, like look pretty, and it's not for him to be like this little like passive girl. No, it's like the powerful. Wars are fought over this. And another thing, I have so many thoughts because you're sparking so much. But Jonathan and I talk about, there's an Instagram meme, and it's about, so the first part is, it says European wife. Okay. And this goes for men and women. I've said this before on the podcast, but this isn't just for women. I'll tell you about how it's men, but this one does. The husband gets home and he's like, oh, honey, like I had such a hard day at work. And she goes, oh, my love. She looks beautiful. She's like massaging his neck. She's like, let me massage you. Let me make you some dinner. Like maybe after we'll go do some boom boom. Like she like says something funny like this, but it's beautiful. And he looks at her and he kisses her, and it's like so sexy.
Passionate, I'm sure.
And then it goes cut to American wife, which like I fall into this sometimes. And the husband comes home. He's like, oh, honey, I had the hardest day at work. She's like, you had a hard day? You don't understand. The kids did this and this and this and this. And
it's almost like competing about who had the hardest day, which is not.
Yes.
It's not sexy.
Exactly. And time and place for everything. Like, of course, we're not saying just like there's time to balance each thing. But the first thing is that sense of like feeling beautiful for yourself, not for one other person, just feeling beautiful is a beautiful thing to do. The second thing, and these go to the practices that you were saying, is that, and this might be out there, so sorry for all the listeners, but I heard it once and it stuck with me. So women, from what I've heard, are the only beings in the world that have one part of their body that the only function is for pleasure. And the fact that women have that also tells us a lot about the biology, which means that like if you want to be in your feminine, literally just feeling good is very important. So it's a very like, these are the words that she uses. Her name's Connie Chapman, everyone. She's an amazing life coach. So you should check her out on Instagram. She's all about feminine, brilliant woman. And she says that it's a sensual thing, right? So feeling good is with your senses. I also didn't realize that that's what sensuality really meant. It's like your senses. And so it's touch, hear, smell, taste, like all of those things. And she goes, try this out as a woman. If you're next to a man on a first date, and probably this is more for a relationship, she's like, when you're next to them, just start to get very clear on your own senses. So like if you're eating food at a dinner date, like start to like really taste the food and like experience that, then hear what's around you and smell it and this and that. And there's something that men literally get attracted to when women are in that sensuality.
No, I've heard that. I can't remember where it was, but I've seen some things about that.
And so,
and I agree.
We could go on and on, but literally as a woman,
it's like they're programmed to respond to us receiving pleasure.
Yes. Oh my God, exactly. And this is probably the most like I've gotten into this on here. So I hope everyone's like enjoying, because it's true, but it doesn't mean the connotations. It literally means find your life enjoyable. And the other thing Connie says, I'm going to give her all the credit here.
Your life.
Wait, okay, we're going to go on that in a second. But the last thing that Connie says that I think is very smart is pleasure over pressure. So anything in life, if it's in your business, if it's in dating, I find people on dating apps will start to put a lot of pressure on themselves. And she says, go back into pleasure. Find it pleasurable. Work. If work is becoming pressure for you, find a way to make it pleasurable
Yeah.
and life will flow in so many ways.
I could not agree more. And I see it all the time in dating or with a lot of people that I work with, where they're going into the date with, is this my person? Is this my person? And then leaving the date either upset or what have you. Not typically with our dates, but this is what I hear.
Do we have a good success rate?
We have a very high success rate.
Wow, that's so much fun. So people going into the date, let's go on the pleasure versus pressure, I guess on both ends, but like, how can someone show up on a date and just be in pleasure state?
I think just going into the date with an open mind, again, not like, is this my person, but to learn something new about yourself or to just have a good time. I mean, it's not rocket science. It's a drink, like have a good time, learn something new about yourself or about them. And maybe you walk away with a new friend, maybe you walk away with a lover, maybe you walk away with a business partner, but enjoy the moment as it is.
I love that. And so I think that's very smart on both ends. Just like go in open mind and have fun. Because if you're having fun,
they're probably going to have fun.
Exactly. The other person's probably going to have fun too. Yeah. So it's a very attractive energy. It's fun.
Yeah.
So the other side of this, not just the feminine, which I don't know enough about masculine. Like masculine's a territory that I haven't entered so much. But I think we've also maybe stripped men of their masculinity a bit.
I think unconsciously, yeah, absolutely. I mean, imagine, and this isn't to knock anything that we as women are doing. Like, again, it's a confusing time for everyone. I think by showing up in our masculine, it doesn't give men permission to step into their own masculine. If you've already got everything and you can handle everything, it's like, okay, cool. There's no place for me here. What do I do? They're repelled by it. Not a conscious thing,
of course. If anything, society has told us the opposite now, been like, be in your masculine, women, be in your masculine, like go get what you want. And it's fine. Like, listen, we both are business women, and like, how epic is that?
Yeah. But there's a time and a place for everything. And if you're saying that like there are no good men in the world and everyone's like no one's assertive, no one's, planning the date anymore or, doing those sort of things, I like to ask women how they're showing up in that situation.
Oh, interesting.
To just take, I think, and that's in every situation, I think you should always look inward. If there's something that you're unsatisfied with, like maybe unpopular opinion, but there's a chance that you have some responsibility in that.
No,
I know that I do. Like, I know that I have times where I'm very much in my masculine, and I totally understand why someone might respond to me in the way that they do.
So what does it look like if you're in your masculine? For anyone, but, talk to yourself or anybody.
Yeah. So I would say, again, that's like the planning, that's the structure, that's the making the decisions, planning the date. That's supposed to be the masculine thing, And again, I think that's different now. I hear a lot of times people complaining like, he asked me where I wanted to go to dinner. And he should have just picked a place. And I'm like, okay, I get that. Basically, the women want to know that the guy can make a decision. And I think for them, it's kind of like, if he can't pick the restaurant, how is he going to be able to make the decisions for our family? I think that's a psychological thing that's running in the background. But at the same time, guys are trying to be respectful and, give women their say, because things are more 50-50 these days. And that's where the disconnect is.
Yeah. And it can be 50-50. It's just that the 50 and 50 can be different. Like women are not supposed to be men and men are not supposed to be women. Like we each bring our 50% of the whole. That's the whole point, is like, if you had the exact same 50%, then you don't even have a whole. You just have two 50%. Yeah. Like you're supposed to bring two different things. So this is good for me even to think about, like, if I want my husband, dear Jonathan, to be in his masculine, how do you put a man into their not that he's not putting it out there, but like just there might be times that I steal that from him. So like saying, can you plan a date? And yes, is that a good way?
That's a good question. I would say, can you plan a date? Interesting. There's I think a way to ask for what you want that doesn't make someone else feel like they're not doing the right thing or they're not doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
And so saying things like, I really love when you do X, Y, and Z for me. Or no, sorry, maybe just like, I love when you, like, it feels really good when you text me or something. Then they're like, oh, she likes that. I got to do more of that. Or it feels really good when you take me out to a nice restaurant. Like, I have so much fun with you when we do that. I think like guys like to hear that they're doing a good job as opposed to like, you're not doing enough.
Oh, this is so good and so true. And it's something that I'm, then when you have kids and you're in a marriage, like it changes again.
Yeah,
you have
absolutely.
to relearn this stuff, right? I find that like in dating, I got to a point that I like kind of got in the flow in my feminine.
Yeah.
And now as a mom, and then like, it's just different.
There's a lot going on. We have a lot of demands.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. But the concept is, and there's fabulous books on this. I'm curious if you read them. There's like The Empowered Wife. There's a bunch. Like
Okay.
it takes one to tango.
I will.
Oh my God, yeah, you should. They're marriage books, but it's the idea of, let's say the man is the head of the house. Great. The woman is the neck, and have you heard this or no?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God, it's from, this is from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, the movie, fabulous movie.
Okay.
And they
Great
say
movie.
the man is the head of the house, but the woman is the neck, and she can turn the head whichever way she wants.
I think I have actually.
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
But it's such a good
Yeah.
saying because it's like, okay, fine. There is a way to do something in an extremely effective and I guess the word for today is powerful way. But if you are able to be like, it makes me feel really good. Again, feeling good is a feminine thing.
Yeah, feeling.
Yes, it makes me so happy. It makes me feel really good when you plan dates and we go here and like, oh, I love going on dates with you. Like,
yeah,
I don't know, but the second you start to tear the other person down and say, honestly, it's so annoying. Our lives are this. We haven't been on date in so long. Like
they're in like fight or flight then. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't do anything right. She's never happy. Like I can't do anything to please her.
So how does this then come up on first dates? Like, because the same concepts apply. That's why I find dating to relationships so interesting because really the same concepts apply. It just changes as like everything changes pretty much. But in dating, how does a woman show? Another thing you said just is that receptive. Like I believe in like leaning back and like letting the man come forward and literally just posture, shoulders up, leaning back, which I don't do well enough. Yeah. But for a woman to, in dating, feel like even just on that first date, showing up, like how can they allow their femininity to be and allow the man to be in their masculinity?
I mean, going back to the example of like just even picking the date spot. So before they even get to the date, just because I hear so much frustration around this. And actually, it's often why I like to pick the first date with my clients if they let me, because then there's no like, there's no tension over that.
Fun. What date do you choose for people?
I mean, I usually just do a drink date,
okay.
At a restaurant, somewhere where they can grab dinner if there's chemistry and they're having a good time.
Do you have your go-to spot?
It depends on the neighborhood. I definitely do. I always somewhere that's like conducive to a first date. I'm not picking like the hottest restaurant because then it's like crowded and there's no, you can't hear each other. So I want to make sure it's somewhere that you can.
Oh my God, so you have to be a headhunter, a therapist, and like a planner.
Like a full service concierge.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because Jonathan, honestly, like was a professional dater back in the day. I met him when he was 37. And he was just like, he dated.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way. But he had his spots and he had his mentality of like, not this is veering off, but that he would always have like a reservation booked at Scarpetta was one of his places.
Great spot.
So we went on part one of the date and I guess he was having fun. So he's like, hey, you want to go grab a bite? And I said, sure. I literally thought he was going to pick up pizza with me. And taxi pulls up, Scarpetta walks out. He goes, reservation for Stern. So like it was honestly,
we love
I was like,
that.
yeah, I know, it's so much fun. Good for him.
Oh,
he always had, if it was a dinner first date, he always knew that there was like a cool bar next door, like live music next door to continue the date.
See, that's being very much in his masculine.
Yeah, he was,
know?
he is, but yeah, he's very good at being in his masculine there. It's very fascinating.
Yeah.
I'm going to take this and think about it with us now, because I probably do, not that he doesn't have it, but I probably try to like plan the this and plan the that. And like, that can't feel very good for him.
No. He's like, this is my domain. Let me do it. I got it.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so going back to like in the early stages of dating, just picking the date spot, you know, if a guy is in the planning process saying like, oh, where do you want to go to dinner? And you want to show up in a way that allows him to be more in his masculine. If you notice that there's something off there, then you could just say something like, I like sushi and I like Mexican food. I'll leave it up to you. That sort of thing. He's like, okay, that. I'll pick. Got it.
Very cool. And then what do we think about paying for the bill? It's such a silly thing, but I actually think that people get very riled up about it. Yes. I've seen
I mean, personally, and I hope no one gets upset with me about this, but I think the man should pay on the first date. I'm sure everyone has like their own idea on how this should be done, but I do think it's nice to offer every once in a while as a woman.
Yes, I agree.
Just because it's a nice thing to do.
Yeah. And I actually think Jonathan and I have come to this conclusion, and this is what we will tell our daughter, is that I think let the guy pay for the meal, like be okay with it and just thank him and you know that. But if you continue to ice cream after,
I always get ice cream.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I got dessert, babe.
Exactly. Like, go get the dessert, go get the second drink, get the taxi, like show that you're appreciative, but literally just as the energies, it's like, yeah, let the guy feel like he doesn't have to take you to the nicest restaurant. He could take you to like the cute.
You can go grab tacos down the street.
Wow. Okay, so can you tell me just in your own life, like how you got to this point, how you've understood this stuff through your relationship? I know we talked a little bit before this, but you guys dated for a while.
Yeah, we dated for 10 years, although we are always still dating, as they say.
Oh my God, I love that. It's always date your wife.
Mm-hmm. You should.
I know. It's such a good one. Date your wife. We got to remember that one, Jonathan. You're right. Date your wife. So you guys, how'd you meet, first of all?
We met through a mutual friend of ours.
Okay.
So we're match made in a way.
Cute.
It was his childhood friend, my sorority sister, and she connected us.
And how old were you guys?
We were babies.
Yes.
We were 21.
Oh my God. And you guys have been together?
And we've been together ever since. So we're celebrating 13 years in September.
Wow. So you guys were together. Did you know early on that this was your person, or you did?
Yeah. I would say, I think it was like, well, because I moved across the country when I was maybe 23.
To New York.
Yeah.
And where was
so
he?
I think he was in New York. Sorry, I moved from California.
You moved from California to New York. He was in New York.
Yes.
Okay. So you had an idea that this was your person.
Yeah. I mean, otherwise I probably wouldn't have moved across the country.
That's very young.
It was very young, but there was just, I don't know, we just worked really well together, I think, back then. And he made me feel very safe, to be honest.
And that's a masculine trait.
That is a very masculine trait.
Wow.
Yes.
To make someone feel like supported and safe. And then you probably made him feel like warm and comfortable and like supported in a different way.
Yeah,
in that more.
I hope so. We'll have to ask him.
Yeah, exactly. We call him up, ask him.
Yeah.
Jonathan does that. It's so mean. He'll call up people. So he's like, okay, so call your boyfriend right now. We just had it recently.
Oh my God.
And they'll like call them and they're like, hey, so what do you like about your person? I'm like, who is this? It's really cute. So you guys dated for a while. And then you got engaged.
We got engaged after, I mean, it was almost 10 years.
Of dating.
Wow.
Was there just
not 10 years? It was like 9 and change. My husband will be very upset if I tell people that it was 10 years.
Were you getting antsy?
No, actually. I never felt like pressure to get married young.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us, we always kind of viewed getting married as like when we're ready to have kids. For whatever reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Yes.
So yeah, I wasn't in a rush to have kids. And then when we did get married, it was kind of like a celebration of the 10 years that we had been together, and a party for all of our friends is really what it was.
That is so
cute.
Yeah,
it was pretty epic having that many different like friend groups together.
You know, it's so interesting. So I grew up one way where I was told like you date someone for many, many, many years. You get to know every part of them. You live with them before you get engaged. So you like really know that you can work with this person. And then you get engaged. You typically have it was a much longer period of time. I ended up learning from like just a complete different culture, right? Like it was people who I was surrounded by more on a culturally religious based world, which was much more like you meet your person and if they not check those things, but like if you're like, wow, this feels right and you have the values that I'm looking for and you have the this and this, you're my person. And like, what else do I need to find out? Like there's going to be something wrong with anybody who I'm with. Like there will be
everybody has their stuff.
Exactly.
It's who you want to work through that stuff, like who you're willing to work through that stuff with.
Exactly. Yeah. So what I was told with this new, mentality was that if you get married to this person very intentionally, like knowing why, feeling it, then once those things come up that like you don't like as much, you are kind of forced to work it out, to find the solutions. Whereas
once you're already married.
When you're married.
Oh, that's interesting.
Whereas when you're dating, it's kind of like, oh, if I don't like that so much anymore, like maybe this
people
just
are quick to leave kind
exactly.
of thing.
Like it's just more like, and it's hard. First of all, living with someone is just difficult in general, typically. Yeah. Like one messy, one not, one this, one that, whatever it is.
You learn a lot about yourself.
Yes.
And about the other person in that situation.
Yes. So you found that I feel like you guys were just kind of mentally married before you were married.
We were very much married well before we got married, I think.
And then you guys got engaged and you got married soon after?
No, we got engaged during COVID. So we, I think, waited a year and a half or so before, maybe almost 2 years.
Okay. So not that long.
Yeah.
So have you found that in yourself and in your relationship, you've grown more into your feminine, you've shifted and changed? Like, how has that kind of panned out in your life, in your relationship, maybe as well in business? Because I know that you had a much more intense job before.
Yeah. It has been a roller coaster, I think is the best way to describe it. I've kind of seen myself flow in and out of my feminine energy over the years. I think maybe in the beginning. Actually, I heard something the other day that there are different stages of feminine energy and masculine energy. And so the first stage for the masculine and the feminine is maybe the more traditional, maybe outdated archetypes where, the man is like the macho, like isn't in tune with his emotions, like, the protector, the provider, all of that sort of stuff. Maybe he's like the high school jock or whatever, if that helps paint a picture. And then for the woman, it's again the housewife that we were talking about, who is a homemaker and maybe doesn't really have a voice in the home or anything like that. So that was like the first one. And then there's the second stage, which is I think where a lot of people are right now. And that's like once you, like for the feminine, it's when you start stepping more into your masculine in the workplace. And then the men step more into their feminine. Okay. So there's that like.
Almost flip-flop.
Yeah, exactly. It's flip-flopped. And then the third stage, and I think the stage that allows people to be in like really conscious relationships is when the woman is in her divine feminine and the man is in his divine masculine, which honestly, I think looks like a balance inside of each individual. So the man is also honoring his feminine qualities. He is in tune with his emotions. He is caring and nurturing as well as strong and a leader. And then for the women, it's the same thing, like understanding where you're masculine, understanding where you're feminine, and embracing all of that at once.
So cool to put it that way, because I think that's like also where it gets confusing is like, wait, so you're telling me like I should go back to the times where women have no voice and the man has no emotions, and you're saying that it's when the balance is within you. But of course, let's say for a woman, her stronger force being her feminine force and the man's stronger force being masculine, but also supported by the other one as well. I also, Connie's getting a lot of shout outs today, because she's really the main person who's taught me this feminine masculine. She has a course called Divine Femme. So big shout outs to her today. But she describes it as the feminine is like water, very, can move, shifts, flows. Exactly. And the masculine is like the mountains that will hold the water. So without those mountains, the water will just kind of fall everywhere. But with them, it provides that structure to hold I think of it exactly
to hold all of the beautiful energy that is the divine feminine.
Exactly.
So again, with the divine masculine, it's that he's able to be that container for the woman.
And then within ourselves, like I'm finding that in business as well, like we've said, there's a time to do, which is a very masculine thing, to make it happen. And this happens in dating too. Like if you're over dating and you're on the apps and you're doing this and you're doing that, like you're doing too much. I think also feminine is much more in being, is like relaxing into it. So right now I'm in a season of, and I talk a lot with my clients about creating the life that they want to live and loving their life and just, improving that. And who am I to tell anybody to do that? And I've never, thank God, not like loved my life per se. Of course I've had challenges, but I'm in a season of being like, let me fully practice what I preach and find so much enjoyment and love in my life. And that feels a whole lot more outdoor time. Mind you, it's summer clearly. So it goes with the seasons as well. But I'm in a much more being state, being the concepts that I speak about. And I think that is just as productive.
I think first of all, I think that's beautiful.
Thank you.
And I do think it's productive for sure. I think we need to like give ourselves time to recharge. So that way when we're ready to be back in action, we can come with a full cup. Like, like the whole thing about pouring from an empty vessel, all of that. I think it's exactly that.
Exactly. And again, we're going to go back to it, but women, I think, have more, maybe not needs for that, but like because our bodies shift and change so much, and another word we're using a lot, but our energy shifts and change so much. I actually was told right before I got married, I did like more or less a marriage course with this couple. It was really fun. And she said to me, she's like, I want to tell you right now that your husband will not understand you and you will not understand him. Like you guys are very different, literal like beings.
Yeah.
And
I feel like that needs a moment.
And knowing that through the dating process, through the marriage process, it is not only okay for us to be extremely different, but we should lean into the differences. Like we should embrace the differences. And no one teaches you this stuff.
No, I don't know why.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. I think, again, we've evolved a lot since the 50s. So.
Yes.
So I think everyone's kind of learning as they go.
Back then, I think they did have marriage classes. Like it obviously wasn't good the way it was set up necessarily. It was part of history. It's meant to be the way it was. But I think that like we literally this should be taught in schools. Like we learn about algebra, and this stuff is very important and carries you throughout life.
It is so important and so fundamental in every relationship. I definitely think it's something that should be taught.
It's so crazy. So if you were to give let's start with yourself, with your younger self, like who maybe didn't understand this stuff or know this stuff in her own dating life, in her own relationship life, all aspects. Like, what would be the one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
Well, for me personally, I suppressed a lot of my emotions because I was a very emotional child at first, and then I was told not to be that way. And so I suppressed them. And I think when I did that, it will eventually come to a boil. And so I think my advice to myself would be to just allow myself to like feel whatever I'm feeling, to honor it, to sit with it and feel it all.
I think that is so beautiful. And I think that, if I'm not mistaken, like we said, feelings, it's a more feminine trait to be able to sit and like feel them. And I think that's the part that like is so important for men to also embody that, have that ability to feel, and sitting and letting the emotion rush through you,
Yeah.
almost as intense as it can, is the only way that somebody can actually release it. And I literally have a visual of it, and I've had this since I was very young, which was, I don't know if I see it as like a wave or like smoke or like a snake. Like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, if I'm feeling, I think I even had it this morning that I was like, why do I feel anxious? I'm like, I can't even like pinpoint thoughts or the situation that made me feel anxious. But I was like, okay, but let me just feel it.
Yeah.
Let me literally just
Instead of
experience
resisting it, because when you resist it, it just builds up more.
Yeah, it's what
And
you
I
resist
think
persists.
too, with like allowing yourself to feel those things, another very feminine quality trait is tuning into your intuition. And so when you suppress your feelings, you almost like block out your own intuition.
So good.
And so I had definitely done that for a little while.
Wow. So feeling emotions honestly will change your life. That's like bottom line.
Yeah, I think so.
Just feel it and work through it. And then what would your main piece of advice be to like people in the world? Like that one thing that you just want to share with people to live their best life in all aspects?
Oh, there's so many ways to go with this. Let me think. One thing, actually, you know what comes to mind first, so I'll go with that, is to know thyself. It's like it's super simple. It's ancient knowledge. I think that's so important because I personally believe that you can only know someone else as deep as you know yourself. Sorry if that sounds so cliche, but it's true. And I think the better you know yourself, the better you understand like why you have the reactions that you do to certain things, or what you want, what you desire, all of that. It only allows you to be a better partner, to be a better friend, to be a better sibling, daughter, all of the things, coworker, colleague. And I think it would solve a lot of problems because then people would be a lot less reactive in the world.
100%. It's so good, so true. And, you know, in Judaism, it maybe one step farther, but just even a little different, which is love your neighbor as you love yourself. And there's so many like nuances to this, but the idea there is that you can't love your neighbor if you don't love yourself.
Yeah.
Like loving yourself is the first step. So know thyself, love yourself in order to love another. I think that is so good. And then just like as kind of a fun thing, because I want people to be able to take this stuff and tangibly apply it to their life. Do you have practices, like any morning routines, midday routines, night routines that allow you? Okay, tell me. I love morning routines.
So many. And then at the same time, I want to caveat it with sometimes less is more. And you don't have to do all of the things that you see on social media. Like find what works for you. What works for me is not necessarily going to work for everyone. But for me, I meditate every morning. I think that has been the catalyst for so much change and growth and peace in my own life.
What type of meditations do you?
I do mostly mindfulness meditations, but depending on how I'm feeling in my body that day, sometimes I need a mantra meditation, or sometimes I'll do TM, or it really just depends. Sometimes I need breath work because my body, I'm feeling anxious or something like that. So sitting for at least half an hour in the morning, and then journaling is huge for me. And maybe that's like a buzzy, trendy thing to say, but it's something I've been doing since I was a kid. And I found that it's very therapeutic to be able to go back and kind of look at my thoughts. What was going on?
I read my journals.
Yeah, what was coming up for me? So those are a couple of the things I do. And then quite a bit more.
I love it. I, a long time ago, had it that you had to every single morning do mind, body, soul.
Yes.
So every morning, I'm sure very
100%.
similar. Listen, I'm not going to preach what I don't practice. Now, this morning, I woke up 7:45. I was in my daughter's room at 7:46. Like I barely even brushed my teeth by the time I was up. I was tired. I didn't get to it. So you, like you said, like sometimes less and more, but I'll tell you, before I open my eyes, part of my meditation practice is kind of, for lack of a better term, the manifestation stuff, but like Joe Dispenza and you know,
I'm
I went
going to his retreat in September. I'm so
oh my God, I
excited.
went. Where are you going?
Nashville.
Oh, I did Mexico.
Okay, we have to talk about this.
Yes, we will. Everyone look into Joe Dispenza. I'll
He's
tell you all.
incredible.
He's amazing. So I'll just do like this morning, literally, I remembered Because I remember feeling anxious. And I was like, what in my day is going to make me anxious? I don't even know. I'll feel it in a second. But first, before I open my eyes, dear Remy, who do you want to be today? You know, like imagine that ideal life. Who is the person in that life that you want to be? Okay. Before you wake up, 1, 2, 3, open your eyes as her.
Yeah.
And that was my meditation this morning.
I love that.
So
it doesn't have to be like a 30-minute or an hour meditation. It can be something quick, something that brings you into the present moment. I think the first thing when you wake up, like instead of having the thought of like, oh, my alarm clock, I don't want to be doing this. Oh, I don't want to go to work. If you can do that and pull yourself into like that beautiful present moment, I think it's, again, powerful.
You're going to have so much fun at Joe Dispenza. It's that beautiful present moment that's just changes your life. It's really amazing. I think that is a fabulous thing to leave everyone with. But can you just tell us where everyone can find you, how they can get your services if that's what they're looking for, and all the good things?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram, Katie Delisa. And for The Bevy, if you're interested in learning more, you can either reach out to me there or on our website, the-bevy.com.
I love it. You're the best. This was so fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. We hope you liked it as much as we did. Now go send it to someone who needs to hear it, because we know that dating, relationships, marriage can be tough, but we want to make it less tough. And remember, you're allowed to hate your husband. Whatever you're feeling is allowed. So go send it to a friend, to your sister, your brother, maybe your boyfriend, a husband, whoever needs to hear this, send it to them. And while you're at it, click the follow button, click the review button. Always feel free to reach out if you have any questions. And we're so excited to see you in our next episode.